Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. It's a great show today. I got to tell you, it's in two parts, and I got a whole bunch of announcements. And actually, on the second half is my one of my all-time favorite radio hosts, and his name is Dave Schrader. And I just got back from the Paranormal Convention in Tahoe. I know I tape early, so it was probably last month. And most of you, if you're older, remember Art Bell. And I never thought that I would. It's like love. When you fall in love, it's different every time. I never thought I could be as fanatical about somebody as much as I was about Art Bell. Dave Schrader, exactly the same. He is a wonderful guy. He's a friend. I think he is the best talk show radio host on the air now in the paranormal field. And not only that, he doesn't sit and read. He heard somebody talking about UFOs on their land, so he gets on the plane and goes. He does the greatest presentation at Paracons. He's funny. The whole thing. The interview is a little odd because I was hosting the paranormal convention. So literally, when you go to these, they pack so much in one weekend. And this one was phenomenal. Wait till next week when we get to the UFO episode and I tell you about that. That blew my mind. I got a whole new obsession with UFOs I didn't have before. So I was literally up at, I think, 7. First thing starts at 9. So I got to stay for the whole thing because I'm bringing the axe up and down and, watching everything. And all these people, there's so much great energy and so much excitement at these. And I felt like we were all vibrating and got tired by the end of the day. They had this woman doing a reading from her book, which was a comedy book. It was hysterical. I have to find out her name and get her on. But I was so tired, I could barely see straight. So halfway through this, I realized I'm not going to be able to pull Dave aside and do a podcast with him. So at lunch, a guy newer to paranormal investigation, just walks over to him, and I think the question was, do you have any advice for new investigators? And I listened for about 3 minutes, and then I just, without even permission, I clip my microphone onto Dave, and he's looking at me like, oh, are you going to ask? But Dave is so nice. And that's how I got, I think, 30 minutes with him. I did the same thing later on with a UFO lady. I was just like, this is called kamikaze podcasting, where you just run in and you put the microphone on the person without permission. But you listen to Dave Schrader for 5 minutes and you're going to be hooked. He's Darkness Dave. You can look up Darkness Dave Radio. He just took over on Midnight in the Desert. Really just the best in the business. That's how we're closing out today, with 30 minutes of Dave Schrader just talking and brilliant just talking. But before we get to that, I got a little business to do. First of all, I have a free, that's right, I said free download, October 26th and 27th. Every Halloween weekend, I do a show. I have a standing show at Flappers. We used to call it Supernatural Junkyard. Now we call it Psychic Stand-Up. And me and my buddy, the hysterical Lamont Ferguson, we do an hour of stand-up. And then the last half hour, we do tarot readings, where he goes in and asks the questions and I do the readings, and we make it really funny. It's hysterical and it's fun. It's real readings, real comedy. And so I took 2 of last year's show and put them together in a 50-minute CD. Free download to you. All you got to do is give the podcast a 5-star review and send me a screenshot that you did, and I will email you a free download of that show, which I think you will very much enjoy. It is R-rated, I think. I think we swore in there a little. But you're adults, you're grown-ups, you can handle that. So email me the screenshot of the 5-star review at any of my emails. I always say paranormalkaren@gmail.com, but somehow all of you find all my other emails. I get no emails at paranormalkaren@gmail.com. Every other email I have gets emails from you guys, but keep them coming. If you've already given me a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you are, you can do it again. It doesn't log as 2, but it just makes, so you can get the screenshot. So I hope so, because I think you will really enjoy that. Super, super fun. You can hear the legend of the gentleman named Wei Hung. Not kidding. That was his name. That's in comedy is what we call a low hanging fruit, is an interview with Wei Hung, his tarot question. And so, there's the first order of business. Here is the second order of business. I have so many comedy dates coming up that I have forgot. I may be coming to a place near you in, November, popping up my calendar on the computer as we speak. I am, let's see, plenty of September. We're almost done, right? We're almost done with September. That gets us into October. We're already probably are at the end of October with this. Like I said, Flappersburg Bank, October 26 and 27, doing the tarot show. My favorite show. Ogden, Utah, one of my favorite clubs, coming back November 9th and 10th. Ogden, Utah, Wise Guys, November 9th and 10th. Pensacola, Florida, coming to see you guys on the 17th in a fundraiser for autism with, are you ready for this? Pensacola, with Sonia King, animal communicator Sonia King, and myself doing comedy in Pensacola, raising money for autism. The 23rd and 24th, we're at Wisecrackers, and I can't remember. I think it's Mohegan Sun. It is in the Poconos. You can email me if you need more details. And that's enough. That's enough right now. 4 dates for you there. So that is business done. Checked off my list. Do. So like I said earlier, if you're older, you remember Art Bell. He really had the biggest, it was called Coast to Coast AM. Now it's, George Norrie's got it. Art was there for years. And I have to tell you, I think, he's probably the only reason I'm doing a podcast. That was the best show. Ask anyone who does late night drives. It was the best radio show. And now a little late night trivia for you, a little radio trivia for you. Who do you think had the very first, even before Art Bell, the very first paranormal radio show ever? It was on UFOs. I'll give you 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You probably didn't know. It was Bob Crane from Hogan's Heroes. He had a radio show about UFOs. He was very, very into that. And I didn't hear it, although I remember I had a big crush on him when I was a little kid. Handsome and dashing as Hogan, even to like a 7-year-old. So Art Bell, like I said, just fantastic. Now, there's a particular episode of Art Bell that I want to leave this open for commentary and discussion. And it was, Art Bell had these fascinating, he'd have just the so-and-so call-in line. It was the vampire call-in line. In fact, sometimes he'd have open lines. I got to tell you about my favorite open line call. It was a guy calls in and Art says, what's going on? The guy says, Art, you're not going to believe this. My cat hides rubber bands under the refrigerator and then pulls them out and plays them with his teeth like a banjo. And Art goes, oh my God, wait, your cat hides rubber bands underneath the refrigerator, goes, takes them out, plays them with his teeth like a banjo. And the guy goes, yes. And Art goes, can you send me a video of that? And the guy goes, no, I can't. I've never seen it. And then Art goes, then how do you know your cat is playing rubber bands like a banjo? And the guy goes, because every time I leave the room, I hear the music. That is perhaps my favorite call of all time, my favorite phone call ever. How do you get to that point? I don't know, but that's every time I leave the room, I hear the music. So there was a famous episode. He would have a Antichrist line. He would have the Antichrist line. And, I always used to think people would call in that thought they were the Antichrist. And I thought, well, if you were the real Antichrist, I think you would know to turn your radio down while speaking to the host. It would come on, I'm the real Antichrist, and Art would have to go, I can hear your radio in the background. Can you turn it down? There's a 3-second delay. So that was always my first test for the Antichrist. So I keep getting reminded of this phone call that once came into Art when he was on Open Lines. And it is famous. Most of you have probably heard it. I remember hearing it live and sitting straight up in bed like, what just happened? There's 2 parts to this. So it was a guy that called in, and he was saying he used to work at Area 51. And in the middle of this, the satellite gets knocked off the air, or the transmission. It goes off the air, and nobody knows what happens. So let me play this for you. It's about 5 minutes long, and you'll hear the silence when it goes off the air, and then the radio station boots back up. Okay, ready? Here we go. Oops.
Line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hello, Art.
Yes.
Hi. I don't have a whole lot of time.
Well, look, let's begin by finding out whether you're using this line properly or not.
Area 51.
Yeah, that's right. Were you an employee, or are you now?
A former employee.
Former employee.
I was let go on a medical discharge about a week ago, and I've kind of been running across the country. Oh man, I don't know where to start. They're gonna they'll triangulate on this position really, really soon.
So you can't spend a lot of time on the phone. So give us something quick.
Okay. Okay. What we're thinking of as aliens, Art, they're extra-dimensional beings that an earlier precursor of the space program made contact with. They are not what they claim to be. They have infiltrated a lot of aspects of the military establishment, particularly the Area 51. The disasters that are coming, the military, I'm sorry, the government knows about them, and there's a lot of safe areas in this world that they could begin moving the population to now, Art.
But they're not doing anything.
They are not. They want the major population centers wiped out so that the few that are left will be more easily controllable.
Discharge.
I started getting...
In some way, something knocked us off the air, and we're on a backup system now.
It's the government, or...
I don't know.
It has to be something, though.
Well, did you hear... Now, you tell me, because you were listening.
That was awful strange.
There was a really weird guy on the air when it went off?
Yeah. Real weirded out.
Like going sort of sounding paranoid, schizophrenic?
Like crying and everything.
Yeah. And how far into the conversation was it when it went off?
Just a couple, about 15, 20 seconds, I'd say.
Oh, you guys missed... You really missed a call then, and I've got a feeling somebody didn't want you to hear it.
Yeah. Because it was really strange. All of a sudden, I'm hearing Mark Furman, and
That's right. Well, the network, of course, went immediately to a backup tape while we tried to figure out what blew up here. So that's what you heard happen. And then we're now on a backup link system to be on the air at all right now. So, well, I'm telling you.
Am I on the air right now?
You're on the air right now. Well, you better be, yes.
And
where are you, by the way?
I'm in Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah, I called the other night, and I wanted to ask two things.
Real quick.
Well, I wanted to say one thing, and I wanted to ask another.
Real quick.
I wanted to ask if you could play that remote viewing one when you were while you go to Egypt.
Yes.
And also, I wanted to know all this stuff about, like, Area 51, if it's, like, the government's trying to put it out there like that, so, like, some other places isn't being watched as much.
In other words, it's a big decoy. I see what you're saying here, and apparently we'll be back after the news, I think. Sandy Beach here, inviting me lost all transmit capability on this end. Here in Nevada, the transmitter went belly up suddenly for some unknown reason. I've never seen it do this in all the years that we've been on the air. I have never seen the transmitter in this way just simply fail, massively fail, like a massive heart attack of some kind. And so we have gone to a backup system to get the signal to you right now, and I presume it is getting to you right now. Totally.
Okay. So that was the call and a couple of things edited in. You can listen to that again, or it's up on YouTube. It's called Area 51 Frantic Caller. There's quite a few things, but that was in 1997, and I remember that call, and it was pretty freaky. And I'll tell you, I know now people in radio do hoaxy things, and they do all kinds of they have fake callers and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you something about Art Bell. Art Bell was, he lived alone in Pahrump. Okay. Pahrump, Nevada, which there is nothing. I have played casinos in Pahrump, and the whole town comes out except for Art Bell, because, I would have loved to meet him. And, he was really a loner. He lived there with his wife. He wasn't really hoaxy. In fact, he was not really a publicity hound, because he had a couple of times he went off the air, and I've heard people say things like, oh, he was so dramatic, but he had his life threatened quite a few times, and he had something terrible once he disappeared for, it wasn't because of anything paranormal or his life being threatened, but it was because of something that happened with his son. So, he was, everybody, when you're in this, it's always a conspiracy. His death was kind of a conspiracy or whatever before they figured out that it was a medical overdose. People had all kinds of theories. But he really wasn't a hoaxy guy. He had his little show from his little place in Pahrump, and that was about it. So now we have some answers to this that it popped up years later. Okay. And this is on the Jimmy Church radio show. And you can see for yourself, this is 17 years later. Jimmy is talking to the guy that either made the call or said he made the call. Let me just play this for you. Okay. It might be too loud. I'll turn it down. Hang on before I blow your ears out. Okay.
See, and did you have any idea, Brian? Did you have any clue that you would leave a mark on literally tens of millions of people for a couple of decades?
It has been a surreal 17 years. I was a struggling up-and-coming comic book writer at the time. I was also part of a touring theater group out of Philadelphia, and I was a huge fan of Art Bell because I would spend my evenings literally in my parents' basement. The literal cliche back in '97. I was in my parents' basement, and I would listen to Art Bell, and I would be on the computer, and I would either be writing or lettering my upcoming comic, and I would listen to Art. And the very first inspiration for the call that became the Area 51 caller was a night that he had vampires calling up. And he at one point he did it at one of his open lines. He did vampire line, and everyone calling up was supposed to say they were a vampire, And then at one point he had a caller call in to say he was a vampire hunter. And that was where the first inspiration to kind of do the crazy paranoid guy to call in and be a vampire who actually wanted to be killed. And I spent that whole evening, like within the couple of hours that the free lines were open, trying to get through, and I didn't. And it was like 2 weeks later, he did the Area 51 caller, and I was working on a book with Mike Oeming, at the comic creator Mike Oeming at the time, called Ship of Fools. And that whole spiel I rattle off is the backstory behind our comic Ship of Fools, about precursor to NASA, and they were extra-dimensional beings and disasters that were going to change the landscape of the world. And I just thought, I'm going to make the call. I'm going to play the same crazy paranoid character. Coincidentally, at the time, in this touring theater group, I was playing a guy in a mental institution in a show called Asylum. And I took the characterization, the language, stuttery pronunciation, and combined it all with the backstory of Ship of Fools and thought, let me make the call. And what no one on the air heard was I had boxes set up in the basement. I had a glass to shatter. And at the very end of the call, when basically things disconnected on Art, was all of a sudden I shrieked, they found me, and I started throwing boxes around, and it ended with a bottle smashing, seconds of dead air. And then I picked up the phone and went, what you have heard, Mr. Bell, was just entertainment for your audience. Click. And I realized I was no longer on the air. And when I tuned in the radio, all hell had broken loose.
Man, I'll never forget it. I remember I was so disturbed after that. And back then, you couldn't, jump on YouTube or listen to files or go back and review. You were stuck unless you were recording the show, like with a cassette deck or something. You couldn't go and listen. And I was like, did that really happen? And the next day, everybody talking about it, and it was disturbing. It was absolutely disturbing. And I guess I've never spoken to Art about this directly. I would love for him to call in. Art, if you're going to call in on any night, tonight is the night that you call in. But that the satellite going down and the feed going down, that really happened.
Yeah, that is. I've been, over the years, I've been accused of various people who, like, of course, you make such a claim as this. You're the Area 51 caller, and immediately you get the people who don't believe it. You immediately feed into the air of conspiracy. But there's the people that then did believe that, that my end of it was theater. And then they've been angry, as if, like, I called Art out of the blue to seed this false information. But it was part of the theater of that night, the Area 51 line.
Right.
And when you listen to the calls that preceded mine, the quality of the, quote, performances varies from quasi-believable to that's a guy having fun on the phone. But it's the idea of the satellite going out in the middle of that call that suddenly took it to a completely different level that I didn't set out to, let me fool Art. Let me fool the ufology community. Let me trick people. It was part of the theater of Art Bell's show. And I was just a call that got in. And for me, the true, while people have said, the moment the call is a fake, then, it's all a fake and I'm angry at him and all the stuff that I've gotten. But for me, the true conspiracy reality is, while my call was fake, Art Bell's show was real.
Mm-hmm.
I said something in a fake call that made a real satellite lose Earthlock, whatever that means. And that is what has terrified me for 17 years.
Absolutely. I mean,
So there you go. Even when the conspiracy's not real, there's a conspiracy. So it kind of sounded like the guy. Maybe it's not the guy. I thought it sounded exactly like him. I'm kind of convinced on the voice, or that is somebody that has done a great job of disguising that voice. He's got a comic book out. I don't know. I guess we could find him. You can find his picture, but that is great radio and a great story. Hysterical. I really wonder. I do believe that Art Bell's show was monitored. But it doesn't take much to be monitored. I'll tell you my story someday, but that is pretty fascinating. If the, whoever the powers that be were actually the ones that got fooled and did whatever to that satellite so that they were fooled. But that is great radio, folks. And now meet the fabulous Dave Schrader.
So kind of sharing the idea, Karen, that you don't always have to be reliant on your equipment. I've actually started to get away from paranormal investigative equipment. Because there's so many inherent flaws. A lot of people don't realize your car keys, if they've got the little remote starter on them, if you're bumping them, that can set off the meters a lot of times, can set off a lot of the equipment. So I've tried to just allow myself to absorb the moment. Now, here's the bad thing. When you're not videotaping it, photographing it, audio taping it, you have nothing to corroborate your story. But truthfully, I'd rather live in the moment and have a story to share than have a piece of audio that's... Did you hear it? It said, Christ is Lord. Really, that sounded like they're great. It sounded like Tony Tiger to me. No, it was definitely Christ is Lord. Wait, no. Donny Osmond, that's what it said, right? So we were at Gettysburg, and I was there with Jeff Belanger. We were hosting a ghost hunt in this house. The Eisenhower Hotel is right there, which is known to be haunted. But they have this house that they built on the property that was supposed to be a caretaker's house. They built this house, nobody will stay in it. The workers keep leaving. The people that are supposed to live in there won't stay in there. Shadow people have been seen in the windows. Alarms go off when there's nobody in the house. So we go in to investigate that night with some people that were there for the conference. We're not getting any real activity throughout the night. Jeff is stationed upstairs with people, I'm downstairs. Because obviously the basement is the place to be, right? It's always the creepiest, darkest, dankest area. Yeah. We get nothing. Well, at the end of the night, all the diehards have, kind of wandered off to go back to the bar to drink. And we're down there with just a couple of intrepid investigators, these two women that decided to stay with us. And Jeff goes, hey man, we've waited long enough. And he points to the crawl space. And I looked at it, all right, let's do this. So all four of us crawl into this crawl space, and there's a hole cut in the wall. So it's about halfway up, hole cut in the wall. So we crawl in, and we get our backs against the wall, because obviously you don't want to sit with your back exposed where a demon can get you, right? And we're sitting there, and we're going to do an EVP session. All right, so we're going to record electronic voice phenomena, and that's disembodied voices. So we're running some recorders. We do kind of a round-robin style conversation, asking questions. We get no response. So as we're all looking down at the recorder, listening for response, I finally look up, and standing in the frame of the crawl space is one of the other investigators. And there's backlight from the basement windows, so you can see it, but you can't see any detail. You just see that somebody's standing there watching us. So Jeff's always very friendly. He goes, hey, come on in, grab a piece of dirt, and let's do some EVP. Crawls right in, crawls off to my right, gets up against the wall. We're doing the EVP. All we hear is a from the person as they get settled in. So we explain to the new guest, we're going to do EVP. Just be as quiet as you can. Feel free to ask any questions. So we go round robin a couple times, and then Jeff goes, do you have any questions you'd like to ask? You, the new person. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. We didn't get it when you crawled in. Do you have any questions? No response. So Jeff grabs his flashlight and turns on. There's nobody down there but the four of us. All four of us watch this person crawl in and move over to the side. So in the dark, we couldn't see. Once they were in the room with us, you couldn't see. All you could see was the door cut with the light coming in from it. So had we been all teched up, A, we might have missed it. B, would he have invited it in the room, right? So it was just one of those moments of relaxing. And with Jeff again, Jeff Belanger and I have done more time in prison than Lindsay Lohan because we're always investigating Eastern State Penitentiary, Mansfield Reformatory. So we're in Virginia City, all right? And we're locked in for an 8-hour investigation for this event that's going on. And our location is the jail. So throughout the night, we're not getting a whole lot. But this is, we give up on the equipment. It's like the last hour of an 8-hour investigation. We're exhausted. And we're sitting on the floor, and there's 2 levels of these jails. And everybody has come down into the second lower level, and they're in there going in and out. And clear as day, Jeff and I see somebody walk out of one cell, walk across, and go into another. And I look at Jeff, and I go, did you see that? And he goes, I think so. And then it comes out of the cell and goes down and walks into another. You can see people. This is just a dark form moving from cell to cell. And he goes, should we say something? And I looked at him and I go, I don't know, man. We're really tired. And he goes, yeah, we're probably just hallucinating. But it was in that moment when we weren't focused on trying to do anything and just let things happen that we found the moment. And that's part of why I love doing investigations and trying different things. Sometimes we'll be very dependent on equipment. Sometimes we just absorb the moment. And as an example for equipment, there are times you can get really great results. Now, I talked about the fact that some equipment's very easy to manipulate, like the K2 meter, Karen. Remember, you've seen it on every TV show.
I just threw mine out.
Right. And the problem with the K2 meter, it's looking for like wiring in walls. And what we found is maybe an artifact of this equipment is that if the ghosts can really manipulate electricity or EM field, maybe they can light it up. But again, I know the fallibility of it. With that said, we're at the Queen Mary, and we're leading this big investigation, and I'm running the whole thing, so I have to keep going from spot to spot to make sure everybody's okay. I walk into the pool room area where they've got the first-class pool. There's about 20 people standing in a semicircle looking at 3 K2 meters, and they're talking to the spirit of the little girl that hangs out by the pool.
Mary.
And they're asking questions. They've got it down to a science where she only responds to the affirmative. So, Mary, do you like ice cream? Blink, blink, blink. All 3 are lighting up. Mary, do you like chocolate? Do you like vanilla? Do you like strawberry? Blink, blink, blink. Oh, that's great. You guys saw that? She loves vanilla. No, she said strawberry. Blink, blink, blink. So they would ask the question numerous ways, and it would always respond in the same affirmative, no matter how they answered it or asked it. So they're doing this experiment, and I'm watching this crowd, and there's guys like you standing in the back with their hands in their pocket, and I'm thinking, oh, this son of a bitch has got a key remote, and he's pushing the buttons. And I'm watching him, and he's totally got this kind of smarmy look on his face as everybody's doing this, and I said, all right, now really impress me. This is amazing that you can do this. And I'm looking him in the eye as I do this, and he's looking down, and I go, just light up the middle one. And the middle one lights up. And then I go, just the one on the left now. Just the one on the left lights up. I go, now just the one on the right. Just the one on the right. I go, now light them all up. And they all light up like an equalizer on a stereo. So everybody's like, ooh, ah. Then we go, all right, we know you love the song London Bridge, right? And blink, 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 blink. Can you kind of sing London Bridge to us using the lights? And the equalizers start going, London Bridge is falling down. And the lights are lighting up to the beat of the music. And we're like, this is nuts. And then how about, it's been a long time since somebody sang Happy Birthday. Would you like us to sing Happy Birthday? Light up, light up, light up. And so we start singing Happy Birthday, and all of the lights. Now, here's the weird thing. They're in progression like you're looking at an equalizer on an old stereo. So there's 3 side-by-side K2 meters. Theoretically, when they light up, they should all be lighting up in unison, but they're lighting up like an equalizer. So the third one's not lighting all the way up unless we get really loud. So we're singing Happy Birthday, and the lights are flickering and going crazy. Everybody, women are in tears. Everybody's all excited. This is just amazing. Flashback to another, I think it was a year or 2 later, we're doing another investigation there. And they're using this thing called the induction probe that's used for finding telephone wires. So it's got like a speaker and this probe, and as you get closer, it'll go zzz. So this guy, Andy Kopic, is sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, which is the PC way to say Indian style, which we all grew up, right? But he's sitting there crisscross applesauce holding it. And would you like to come up? Zzz. And we had to tell her, you have to back off. You're too loud. She'd back off. So we're doing this. They've got film crews watching all this. I'm looking to see if Andy's rubbing the induction probe on a shoelace or the little ringlets on our shoe to make this. He's not budging. And they've got video cameras on him. And it's responding. And I go, hey, the last time we were here, we sang to you. Do you remember? And I go, okay, how about this time you sing to us? How about you sing London Bridge. And all of a sudden, and everybody's going crazy, right? Literally, women are weeping because they just felt this connection. So I'm looking around trying to figure out how they're faking this. There's got to be, this is just insane. So he gets on, I go, oh, that's great. How about happy birthday? We're like, all right, this is fantastic. Now, all the time, even when it quiets down, you can always hear this background. So I go, well, that's really great. Jackie is her name, not Mary.
Oh,
that's
Jackie,
yeah,
you're
Jackie.
right, I'm sorry.
And I think there's another girl ghost named Mary on board, but Jackie's the big famous
The
one.
one in the pool.
So I go, well, now really impressed me, Jackie. Let's hear a little Inagata Davida by Iron Butterfly. And the background hum goes, bzz. And there's nothing. And Andy looks up and goes, I think you broke our ghost. And we're all kind of laughing, and we all take a deep breath, and we're not focused. And hand to God, and it's on video.
Wow.
I turn around and I go, bullshit. How would a little girl from the 20s or 30s know Inagata Davida? But we had no explanation for it. So that was one moment when watching the equipment was really kind of a cool payout.
So the guy that with the K2 that was clicking in his pocket. So
well, no, I assumed that's what he was doing.
Oh, okay, but he wasn't.
It's not directional.
Oh.
It's not like he could aim it at one and it would set it off. You're either picking up the
Right,
RF
all of them
frequency
are,
or you're not.
Yeah.
So I just made an assumption because he looked smarmy and had the hand in the pocket, watching over the backs of everyone else, that's got to be my guy.
Oh.
And I was wrong. I can't explain it to this day how he made that happen.
He or Jackie.
Right.
Whichever
So
one.
to me, it seems like it was, or then we start getting into the tulpa concept. 20 of us standing around wanting these answers. Were we focusing and affecting the energy to make it happen?
Right.
So.
I have a weird segue that I want to ask you about.
Sure.
I hope you don't mind. You were talking about mirrors once, and I'm fascinated with mirrors.
Yes.
I do have a haunted mirror.
Okay.
But I find that like mirror to mirror activity. Have you had any mirror stories?
Yes. And I actually, at the conference we're at today, I'm going to tell a really creepy one later.
Oh, great.
But dealing with investigations, some of the times we've talked to people, I ask when they say there's a really excited place in their home, that they're having a lot of activity. I ask them, do you have mirrors facing each other? And they're like, yeah, come to think of it, we do. And I'm like, cover one of the mirrors for a week. Just cover it. And then I get the call back, nothing's going on. I'm like, all right, move one of the mirrors. I don't understand it. It's, it's glass with like an aluminum coating on the back, silver coating. How is that a portal? But it's light? I don't know. But that's why in the old days they used to cover the mirrors at the time of death because they thought if you saw yourself, you would forever be trapped as a ghost. So in funeral homes, they'll always cover the mirrors. And that was kind of the old ways. And remember, when we used to have the wakes, it was always in our home. So you'd be laid out in the living room, right? But they would cover the mirror so that you wouldn't be trapped. So I have had some stories like that. There's some really interesting footage out there. Adam Bly, who was an investigator, showed where you saw this black mist kind of pour out of one mirror and move across and go into another mirror. So is there something to it? Possibly. Is it a portal? I don't know. I mean, but I've seen some weird stuff. All I can do is eliminate, and that's what I do is I try to eliminate. Okay, cover your mirrors, cover this, see if it changes.
And didn't they make a little, not a spirit box, but I think it was Joshua P. Warren made a box that were all the mirrors pointed in?
Yes, he calls it the Devil's Toy Box.
And have you ever seen one of those?
Yes, I have one.
Oh.
Bill Chappell actually created little ones for me so we could mic it up.
Ah.
And I never ended up playing the audio because it was so weird.
Oh, but it did have an effect.
Yes, because Josh was like, oh, yeah, you get this. And I was like, all right, because, again, I'm skeptical. I love these people. They're my friends. But I'm skeptical of some of the stories they tell. So I get this box, and the theory is it's an entire mirrored box, but the mirrors are all pointing inward. And then you mic it up with one of those suction cup mics, which records only magnetic frequency. It's not recording. You can plug it into your tape recorder and talk, and it's not going to pick up your voice. It's only going to pick up magnetic frequency. So theoretically, what you're picking up is from somewhere else, right? And I got growls. I got what sounds like the box moving a few times. I got what sounded like chatter, but nothing. It was like... So is that mechanical noise? Is it something? Because I had to leave it alone. But I couldn't be there around, so I don't know if Did it pick up the sound of the water softener regenerating and I'm hearing it differently? I don't know. So that's, and that was my experiences with that. But I never played it because I didn't feel it was conclusive enough. It did sound scary and sound weird, but I didn't feel like it was
that much.
Yeah, I couldn't confirm that it was definitely that because I didn't stand there for 24 hours marking every noise that was heard.
Yeah, that's the one thing about EVPs. I cannot sit and listen. I've given up already. I'm photos, not EVPs, because I can't listen to all that stuff.
See, I love the sound. I love that because I'm an MTV generation. I want it and I want it now. But I like the recorders that do it voice activated. And if you've got the balls to do it and you think your house is haunted, leave a couple of voice activated recorders in your bedroom at night. You may not like what you hear, aside from the flatulence and other weird noises you make at night. I've had people that have done that, and then they send me the audio, and you can hear them, and in the background you hear talking. So that gets kind of weird. But, again, there's different ways, and it just depends on how you get comfortable. And if you're really interested in doing EVP, the idea is setting an intention. Every day at 3 p.m., I'm going to do EVP for 15 minutes. And for a few weeks, maybe a few months, you'll get nothing. But then it's like once you've kept that light on and they know this is your thing and you're serious, they start showing up.
Well, isn't that, though, then you kind of are haunting your own house, right?
Theoretically, but you're also more in control. You set the intention. 3 to 3:15, you may communicate with me through this device.
Interesting.
And that's it. Now, have you ever seen the skull experiment? There's a great documentary, and it's on YouTube or Netflix, but it's called The Afterlife Investigations, The Skull Experiment, SCOLE. And it's really fascinating because they did this for a period of years where they would go in and they would set this seance-y like moment, and they try to make communication every day at the same time, same place, and they were getting off-the-charts results.
Really?
They would bring in brand new packages of film that they would break out, set it on a table underneath a glass dome. They would do this, they'd take it back, they'd immediately have it developed, and there would be images imprinted. There would be writing imprinted on the film. So there was also things apporting, which means they'd be there, coins would drop on the table from past eras. An entire newspaper from like 50 years prior dropped on their table. So they got all this really interesting stuff, but they dictated the parameters of the experiment. So the spirits weren't, it was like they were dealing with a higher elevated version of spirits. It wasn't just the rattling chain spook you kind of experiment.
Right.
So again, if you set the intention, I'm afraid if I do this, I'm going to bring in evil. As I was explaining earlier, it may not be evil. Listen, I'm a smartass in real life, and if you are doing this, but I know you're afraid, as a ghost, I'm not a demon, but I'm going to come tug your hair, and I'm going to go into your microphone and go, just to freak you out, right?
Yeah.
So as in life, so in death. And if you're a smartass when you're living, why wouldn't you be as a ghost? So I think that there's some concept to that. That's why I always tell people, don't jump to the demonic conclusion.
Right.
Because if it's truly a demon, when people call me and they say, I think I have a demon, I'm like, you're cool, everything's good.
Yeah.
They're like, well, what do you mean? And I said, you said the key word, I think. If you think you have a demon, you don't have a demon. Well, but I didn't even tell you what happened. I'm like, okay, tell me what happened. And they go, well, I was sitting there in my living room, and then all of a sudden, my grandmother's favorite plate fell off the wall and shattered. And I'm like, okay, yeah. All right, did the pieces make 666 or a pentagram on your carpet? No. Did the shards fly across the room and try to impale you? Well, no, that's just ridiculous. And I said, but it's ridiculous to think that because your grandma's plate fell off the wall and broke, it was a demon. Well, yeah, I love that plate. So I always, and I think you'll enjoy this as a comedian, in my mind, I'm always picturing what roll call is like in hell that day, right? And Satan's up at the front of all right, everybody, this is what we're going to do. Today, you, over there, you're going to go get a reality guy as the president of the United States. You go over to the Middle East and start war. And Larry, where's that stupid nephew of mine? You, go break grandma's plates. Right? I mean, that's like the only job Satan's idiot nephew is good for. I'll break the plate, and that's it. So why is that evil? Maybe irritating.
Right.
Maybe the fact is your grandmother got that from her mother-in-law and always hated that stupid plate, and she just finally said enough and knocked it off the wall.
Or an earthquake. That's my. I live in California. That's my always first check is earthquake.
So I always tell people, don't jump to the conclusion of the demonic realm. And does the demonic exist? Sure. And you really got to work hard to bring it into your life.
Oh, I think so. You know what I always wonder is because I live in an old apartment building, and there's a lot of activity, and I'm very adamant about cleansing because that's where I read my tarot also. So there's already some kind of vibration.
Right.
But I always think there is a lot of negative stuff in that building, and
Sure.
I don't want to open you know what I mean? It's a little, I don't want to be like everybody go, hey, the green light's open in number 3.
Yeah, but if you're doing tarot reading anyway and you're opening up psychically, you're already a beacon. So again, it's setting your intention and just stating, at my house, I tell spirits, it's fine if you want to be here, leave my children alone and leave me alone in the bathroom. That's my only rules. Leave me alone in the bathroom. Although that's the only place you want the shit scared out of you. So it should be okay. But I just don't want those experiences to happen while I'm prone, right? So those are my rules. And I really usually don't have issues.
And I know I did a kamikaze interview with you here.
No, that's fine.
Oh, it's great. Have you ever had anything negative follow you home?
Yes, a couple occasions, weird stuff. I know. Again, what's your definition of negative?
Negative, just
things that unnerved me, maybe, but it wasn't like they were trying to tear open the fabrics of space and time.
Right,
right?
nothing terrifying.
When my son was very little, Linus, he looks like Ronnie Howard.
Your son's name is Linus?
Yes.
I've never met anyone named Linus.
There you go. You still haven't.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that he's
That's
there.
the most amazing thing I've heard so far at the whole Paranormal Convention, that you named your son Linus.
He looks like Ronnie Howard from the Andy Griffith Show. Okay, so you just that apple, cute face, red hair, freckles. And while I was separated with my wife, we were living in the same home, and I was sleeping down in the basement, and my wife comes downstairs one night, and she wakes me up, and she goes, you need to talk to your son. He's driving me crazy, because she was not a believer in the paranormal.
Oh.
And I go, what's going on? She goes, well, tell Daddy. He goes, well, Daddy, Pacey keeps running around in my room, my daughter. I go, honey, Pacey's barely a year old. She can't crawl, let alone walk, She's not running around. I keep seeing her shadow running around in my room. I'm like, okay, well, you're just dreaming about it. And, of course, being a paranormal investigator, the first rule is always dismiss what the children tell you, right? That's what we should all learn. And so I told him it's nothing. And she goes, that's not all. Tell him the other thing. And he goes, oh, yeah, Daddy. And then there's the little boy on the top bunk. And I go, honey, that's your brother Nathan. And he goes, no, Daddy, Nathan's sleeping. This little boy is sitting on the top rung with his feet on the ladder, and he's looking at me like this. And he slowly tips his head down
Little evil
and
eye.
looks under the brow at me. So he goes from Opie to Damien, Thorne. It's really creepy as hell. So, of course, at this point, my soon-to-be ex-wife is now going back up to her room, and I realize that there's now something dark and malevolent upstairs with my other son. So being the responsible parent I am, I said, well, Linus, you just sleep here on the floor next to Daddy where it's safe. And then I laid there for about 15 minutes feeling really guilty. And so I go stomping up the stairs, flipping every light on in the house, and I'm literally doing there better not be something up there. And if it is, I'm going to grab it by its ethereal ass and throw it out. And I'm just like, please don't let there be something.
People.
Right. Well, and I did. So it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I called John Zaffis. And John answered. He's like, Dave, not for nothing, but it's 3 a.m. What do you need? I told him, he goes, all right, this is what you got to do. Do you have the holy water? So I went through and did the blessing in my son's room. And then he goes, now lift up the mattress. And I said, okay, because it was a bunk bed, which I also believe is a portal to the evil realm.
Really?
Well, how many times I hear stories in the paranormal that start off with, we have a bunk bed. So I'm starting to think, IKEA and bunk beds are trying to kill us. But so I lift up the mattress, and he goes, make the sign of the cross underneath the mattress. He goes, the spirits like to come up through the bed. Oh. So if that's not unnerving news,
I
right?
know,
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So I sprinkled it on the floor, and then I sprinkled it on the frame underneath it. So then when I laid the mattress down, it was there. And then I sprinkled it on top of the mattress in the shape of a cross. And then I did the blessing from the furthest corner out the door, so that I was pushing it out, not locking it in. So a lot of people will start putting the blessings over the door, and you're locking them in. So
Why is there not a book of those tricks? That's the book I need.
Because here's the problem. If it was just general information, a lot of people jump to conclusions. Like after the movie The Exorcist came out, everybody was possessed. After the Poltergeist movie came out, paranormal activity jumped around the planet because everybody thought they were dealing with ghosties, right? So when you put it into the general nomenclature of it all, right, suddenly it becomes real and everybody starts jumping at every shadow. So they really kind of hold on to it till you come to them telling them what's going on, and then they'll explain to you what to do. So I've done those kind of blessings. And John also told me, Dave, you got to stop bringing it in with you. So he goes, I have a sign on my door before I walk into my house in the garage where I'm kicking off my shoes. I look up at that sign and I do a prayer and a blessing so nothing comes in with me. So I started adopting that.
Right.
And, so I've had that. And I've had some weird experiences recently at home again. Our littlest guy just started complaining that there's shadows moving around in his room. And it's unnerved both of our little sons, so they don't want to sleep in that room anymore. So the other night I go in, I chastise what's in the room. I said, you get the hell out. I'll call in the big guns. You can communicate with me or the wife, but you leave our kids alone. I get back in, and this is like 2 minutes before my showtime, talking to my guest. Right at showtime, all my systems shut down.
Oh.
And we've been having weird stuff like that happen recently. So, I don't know. Is it demonic, or is it just something telling me you're not really in charge here?
Or when they talk about the veil getting thinner, I just wonder if everything now has a little more zip to it than it used to.
Could be.
Yeah. That's funny because I will see Courage. I'll see him standing waiting for food in the kitchen. And
Courage, your dog.
My dog.
Right.
And I'll be like, I don't have anything. And then I'll walk around the corner and he's sleeping. Like my animal communicator says he's a guru, and I really think he pops out. She and I work together.
That's
to find...
a doppelganger. Right? A doppelganger? Thank you.
We find sometimes we work together. I use the tarot to find stuff. We find lost animals. She can see what the animal can see. I use the tarot to find location.
Okay.
And when all else fails, I go ask Courage, and he always knows where the animal is. He always describes it or something. It's really quite fascinating what that. But I think. So
does your dog have like the local cats down in the basement with a bucket and some lotion? Yes, mother, I know where it is.
He's not a friendly dog.
Right.
But every once in a while, someone will come for a reading or something like that, and he will jump up and chase something around the room, and I always just go, yeah, he does that for everyone. But you know what I mean? Like, he's the greatest ghost. Sometimes I call her from investigations, and I go, tell me what he sees. And she'll nail everything that's going on in the room.
You need a TV show.
I know.
I know people.
I know.
I really do. We got to get you on. Animal Planet would love you.
Oh, yeah.
Or Comedy Central.
I know. Well,
so,
I'll choose Animal Planet.
Yeah, exactly. Better pay.
Yeah, I know you got to go to lunch, but thanks for that.
Hey, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
All right. People are always asking me, Karen, you are so knowledgeable about tarot, ghosts, and otherworldly spirits. How do you stay so organized and grounded here on Earth? And I have to tell them my secret weapon. It's black tourmaline. And Nita over at nitaapple.com. After years of complaining about all the text messages and emails back and forth, trying to schedule tarot readings and chasing after payments, Nita installed Acuity Scheduler on my website, and now I just get a little ding on my phone, and that tells me someone has made an appointment and the money is already in my account. I love that little ding, except every time it goes off, Courage runs to his food bowl. 5 minutes with Nita can save you 5 hours of bumbling around and trying to do things yourself. So if you spend 10 minutes with her, that'll save you like 72 hours or something like that. I don't know, I'm not good with math, but you know who is? Nita. That's who I would ask. Want to end all the emails back and forth and get paid up front when clients schedule time with you? Then hop on over to nitaapple.com/services and let Nita get you set up with a simple system that will make your life so much easier. Use coupon code BOO4U and get 20% off any products or services. She's got a lot of services and products that can save you time and money. That's BOO4U, all lowercase, BOO, the number 4, the letter U, and get 20% off. That's Nita Apple at nitaapple.com/services. nitaapple.com/services, and make your life easier today.